United States.
United States.
Gentrification in Washington, D.C.
Gentrification in Washington, D.C.
A no-go-go area.
A no-go-go area.
The capital's declining black population fights to preserve its musical heritage.
The capital's declining black population preserve to fight the capital's black populations. Capital's declining black populations fight to preserve its musical heritage.
People often slow down to bop.
People often slow down to bop
As they pass Donald Campbell's mobile phone shop in Shaw.
as they pass the Donald Campbell's mobile shop at Shaw,
A neighborhood in Washington, D.C.
in neighborhood in Washington, D.C.
Until 7 p.m. every day.
Until 7 p.m. every day.
Speakers outside blast go-go.
Speakers outside blast to go-go.
A drum-based fusion of funk, R&B, and soul.
Drum-based fusion of funk, R&B, and soul.
That is indigenous to the city.
That is indigenous to the city.
In an area that was once dotted with go-go clubs.
In an area that was once dotted with go-go clubs.
Several of them owned by Mr. Campbell.
Several owned by Mr. Campbell.
This is one of the last public places the music is played regularly.
This is the last place. The music is played regularly.
It is also the scene of a row.
It is also the scene of row
that has forced a reckoning
that has forced to reckoning
on how gentrification is eroding the culture of a once black majority city.
How gentrification is eroding the culture of the black majority city.
Last spring, residents of a glossy new apartment block, mostly inhabited by young white newcomers to the area,
the mostly inhabited young and white newcomers to the area,
complained about the racket. T-Mobile, which owns the shop, asked Mr. Campbell to turn it off.
Which he did.
That unleashed a torrent of anger. From African Americans across Washington.
From African American across Washington.
There were large street protests. At which go-go bands played Don't Mute DC social media campaign.
A Don't Mute DC social media campaign.
And an online petition. After a few days of this, John Leisure, T-Mobile's boss, tweeted that the music should not stop in DC.
The music is not stopped in DC.
Mr. Campbell turned it back on. Don't Mute DC has since morphed into a wider protest movement against gentrification. DC, Mr. Campbell turned it back on. Don't Mute DC has since
Don't Mute DC has since
morphed into a wider protest movement against gentrification.
morphed into wide protest movement against
With go-go its symbol. Wider protest movement against gentrification.
the gentrifications.
With go-go its symbol.
With go-go is symbol.
Created in the 1970s by
Created in the 1970s
Chuck Brown, whose Bustin' Loose
by Chuck Brown whose Justin Loose
was for years the Washington Nationals home run celebrations. Bustin' Loose was for years the
was for years
Washington Nationals home run celebration song.
was Washington Nationals home run ceremony songs.
Go-go was the last flourish of a black majority city's vibrant musical culture.
Go-go was the last flourish of black majority cities' vibrant musical culture.
Shaw was at its center.
Shaw was its center.
By the 1980s,
At the
go-go band's culture. Shaw was at its center. By the 1980s, go-go bands played every night in the neighborhood and beyond.
go-go band played every night in the neighborhood and beyond.
Go-go's decline began the following decade.
Go-go's decline following decade,
when, in an effort to curb violence, the city forced clubs to close earlier.
when in effort to curb violence, the city forced to club
And in an effort to curb violence, the city forced clubs to close earlier.
City forced the clubs to close earlier
And to stop serving alcohol.
and to stop serving alcohol.
Around the same time, blacks began moving out to the Maryland suburbs.
Blacks moving out to Maryland suburbs.
Gentrification has accelerated that process.
Gentrification has accelerated that process.
By 2015,
By 2015,
the proportion of black Washingtonians had
the proportion of black Washingtonians
dropped below 50%
dropped below 50%
for the first time since the 1950s.
for the first time since 1960s, 50s.
These changes have particularly harmed go-go.
These changes particularly These changes has particularly harmed go-go
Because it was created to be experienced live.
because it was created be experienced live.
Its characteristics include call and response,
These characteristics include call and response,
which turns the audience into part of the performance,
which turns the audience part of the performance,
and the use of percussive solos,
and the use of percussion solo
instead of pauses between songs,
instead of pausing between songs,
which is how go-go got its name.
which how go-go's got its name.
That makes the music unsuitable for radio or 3-minute hits.
That makes the music unsuitable for radio and 3-minute hits.
Without live venues,
Without live venues,
a new generation had mostly given it a miss.
a new generation have mostly given in a myth.
That, says Mr. Campbell, has changed since last year's protests.
That, says Mr. Campbell, has changed since the last protest.
He is developing an internet streaming service for
He's developing internet streaming service.
his huge collection of live tests. He is developing an internet streaming service for his huge collection of live recordings.
For his huge
Developing an internet streaming service for his huge collection
collection of
of live recordings.
live recordings.
A go-go museum is in the works, and this week DC Council declared go-go museum is in the works, and
A go-go museum in the works.
this week DC Council declared go-go the city's official music.
And this week, DC Council declared go-go the city's official music.
Though it is not clear quite what that will entail,
Though it's not clear quite what that will entail,
it seems likely to involve tourists.
it seems likely to involve tourists.
The efforts to preserve go-go
The effort to preserve go-go
may end up gentrifying a
form of music
that was created to be anything but.
that was created to be anything but.